Did you know China is secretly carving a trench into the seabed of the Red Sea, one of the most important maritime arteries on Earth? Not for oil, not for science, but to reshape global trade and quietly anchor itself as the dominant force in one of the world's most strategic choke points. This isn't just construction. This is conquest, masked by cranes and cargo ships. What they're building changes everything. If you wanted to control global trade, you wouldn't need to fire a shot or build a wall. You'd take Djibouti. This tiny country on Africa's eastern horn may not look like much on a map, but it sits right at the gateway between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, a narrow corridor of water called the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, just 29 kilometers wide, funnels over 10% of global trade. Oil, electronics, raw materials, everything that powers the modern world sails through here. Now, imagine if someone could control what goes in and what comes out. Djibouti is that gate, and China found the key. Back in 1896, Djibouti was just a French colony with a dusty coastline and dreams of relevance. But even then, colonial powers realized this place was a launch pad. They built a port, simple by today's standards, but it became Ethiopia's lifeline to the sea. Fast forward a century, and the world's ships have transformed into floating skyscrapers. Container behemoths stretching 400 meters long, hauling 20,000 units at once. But Djibouti's old port? It couldn't keep up. Shallow waters, cramped docks, weeks-long delays. By 2016, the congestion was choking Ethiopia's economy. 95% of its imports passed through Djibouti, and every traffic jam at the port meant pain on the streets of Addis Ababa. And that's when China stepped in. China's Belt and Road Initiative was never just about roads and bridges. It was about leverage, building the arteries of global trade, so they'd flow through Beijing's hands. Djibouti checked every box. Strategic location, friendly government, desperate for investment. So, in 2017, China financed and helped build the Dorale multi-purpose port, a deep-water facility capable of docking ships that would have snapped the old colonial harbor in half. They didn't just deepen the port, they dug a trench, a massive underwater channel carved through the seabed to let the world's largest commercial vessels glide in like kings. Millions of tons of sand were dredged and relocated. 2.2 million square meters of artificial land were created. That's enough land to park over 400,000 cars. But this trench wasn't just for trade. It was for something much, much bigger. Just 2 months after the port opened, China unveiled its real ace, a naval base, not near the port, right next to it. Djibouti became home to China's first overseas military base, just minutes from the commercial facility it had built. It was a move straight out of Sun Tzu's playbook: build infrastructure, win loyalty, and plant your flag quietly. The base houses up to 2,000 PLA Marines. It features bunkers, warehouses, fuel depots, and docking stations, built on the same dredged trench that welcomed cargo ships. Now, it welcomes destroyers. China says it's for anti-piracy, and yes, Somali pirates once wreaked havoc in these waters. But the real story is about presence, projection, power. That trench, it wasn't just about economics. It was about warships, about subs, about potentially launching aircraft carriers into the Indian Ocean without sailing 5,000 miles from Shanghai. And here's the kicker. Just across the way sits Camp Lemonnier, the U.S.'s largest military base in Africa. Two global powers, one tiny country, a trench beneath their feet. This wasn't a one-off. China's playbook is crystal clear now. In Egypt, they bought stakes in the Suez Canal terminal. In Saudi Arabia, the Red Sea Gateway terminal at Jeddah. Across Africa, 78 ports in 32 countries, built, financed, or operated by Chinese companies. Every one of these footholds forms part of a sprawling, carefully orchestrated network. It's a spiderweb of trade and influence. And guess who's at the center? The Red Sea is now China's chessboard, and Djibouti is its queen. The Dorala port is more than a trade hub. It's a multi-purpose behemoth. It can process 8 million tons of cargo annually, has deep-water berths for 100,000-ton vessels, grain terminal moves 300 tons per hour, fertilizer hub, vehicle import lanes, and even a livestock export station that can process 2.5 million animals per year, including 1,000 camels a day. This isn't just logistics, it's soft power built with cranes and cement. Ethiopia, a landlocked nation with 120 million people, is now tightly locked into China's system through the port, through investment, and through the Addis Ababa-Djibouti Railway, another $3 billion Chinese-funded project completed in 2018. It slashed trade time from weeks to hours, and it runs on Chinese rails built to Chinese specs maintained by Chinese engineers. The trench? That was just the start. Let's call this what it is, a masterclass in geopolitical strategy. While Western powers talked diplomacy and sanctions, China quietly laid concrete and laid claim. They didn't just win contracts, they built dependencies. Ports under Chinese control don't just serve Chinese goods, they prioritize them. Want your ship to dock first? Hope your flag's red and yellow. Now multiply that by dozens of ports across Africa. That's not just trade dominance, that's policy leverage. If a nation relies on China for its exports, its ports, its railways, will it back a UN resolution that threatens those ties? Unlikely. And China's not done. Djibouti's port is already expanding. Phase 2 of the Durala development will quadruple its size, a $290 million expansion to handle ultra-large container ships of the future. A 48-square-kilometer free trade zone is under construction, promising 350,000 jobs and turning Djibouti into the Singapore of Africa. Luxury waterfronts, banking districts, even smart city projects, all backed by Chinese banks, Chinese developers, and Chinese operators. Satellite imagery shows new piers under construction, possibly to accommodate an aircraft carrier strike group. That trench, once just a gateway for trade, may soon become a dock for global power projection. Why should you care? Because 80% of global goods move by sea. Because 15% of that traffic sails through the Red Sea. Because every iPhone, every gallon of gas, every bag of coffee might pass through a trench China now owns the blueprints to. This isn't paranoia, this is strategy, with blueprints, contracts, and boots on the ground. Djibouti may be small, but it's no longer just a pin on the map. It's the pivot point of a new world order, where ports matter more than politics and trenches hold more power than treaties. China didn't fire a missile, it fired up dredgers. It didn't seize territory, it signed leases. And while the world was watching for tanks and tariffs, it quietly dug a trench into the heart of global commerce. So now the question isn't what is China building? The question is, who else is digging trenches while we're looking the other way? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and stay curious. We'll see you in the next story.